What's going on, everybody? American Football Network here with another video today. And today we're bringing you guys our way too early Clemson football preview and looking ahead to what's for the future for the Clemson Tigers. But before we get started, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Comment those thoughts and opinions down below. Help me reach that goal of 1,300 subs by the end of February. I believe we're about 32 away. So let's get going on that. Let's go ahead and hit that goal and move on to our next of 1,350. But before we go ahead and get started today, let's go ahead and throw it over to Michael, who's joining us here from the Football Extraordinaire, correct? You just changed your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So go
Mm.
ahead and let everybody know where they can find you at. And how you doing today, man?
Good. So you can find me at, obviously, as you said, the Football Extraordinaire on YouTube. As most of you know, was formerly called Ohio State Hype Videos, but I changed that yesterday, I believe, as I'm just going to go overall football content now. I'm hoping to get to about 50 as of right now subs. I'm still at 43, and you can also find me at Patreon at the Football Extraordinaire as well.
All right. So there you go. Go check him out over there and help him hit all of his goals as well. So let's go ahead and jump in to the videos. We're going to start by just kind of looking at um, Clemson's roster and what they bring back and what they've lost. So, they when you look at guys that they lose a good bit defensively, not really much offensively. They will lose the center and Will Putnam as he's a graduate. They lose running back, one of their starting running backs. They kind of split the carries between Phil Moffitt and Will Shipley. They lose Will Shipley as he has entered into the NFL draft. You look on defense, so they lose guys that they don't lose four starters, but they lose three and four guys. Lose three starters, four guys on the D line. They lose Xavier Thomas, defensive end, Tyler Davis and Ruka Roro, two defensive tackles who are going to go pretty high in the draft, and Justin Maskell, a graduate defensive end. I'm not sure if he entered into the draft or not. I think his football career might be over. You lose your best player defensively. Well, really pick one who you think's the best player between linebacker Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and cornerback Nate Wiggins. You also lose Jalen Phillips and Sheridan Jones at secondary position. Sheridan Jones a corner, Jalen Phillips a safety, as they are moving on to they're graduates. I'm not sure if they're going to move on to the NFL or not. I'm sure they've entered, but I don't know if they're going to get picked up. You look at the transfer portal, big name that you lose at the safety position is Andrew Makuba, who's one of the top safeties in the country for college football. So does anything stand out to you really in terms of people that they've lost? Do you see any big holes that Clemson's going to have to
Um,
fill coming up next year with guys that they've lost?
I would say definitely the biggest hole would be filling Jeremiah Trotter Jr.'s. Obviously one of the best linebackers in college football. Um, Very underrated. I think it can go mid first round, if not earlier than that. But linebackers probably won't be that high valued this year. So, probably should probably go mid first round, will probably go late first round, early second. But just great linebacker overall. Can tackle well, can rush the passer, can stop the run. He can cover pretty well. Just overall good player.
Yeah, for sure. He's going to be tough, tough spot to fill. But that kind of brings us into our kind of next topic we were wanting to discuss was the guys that they bring in. As you mentioned, they lose Trotter, one of the best linebackers in the country, but they bring in the second best rated linebacker in all of the country out of high school, five-star linebacker Sammy Brown from Jefferson, Georgia, number 14th, ranked nationally second at his position linebacker position. So they bring in a nice player to fill his role. They also return Barrett Carter. He comes back. A lot of people thought he was going to the NFL, but they bring him back. You look at a guy, Kobe McLeod will be stepping in. He played a lot last year. Wade Woodaz played a lot last year. D. Creighton, another guy, redshirt freshman, who got a lot of action last year in the 4 games that he played in. Big to have him in there as well. I think that you kind of replaced Trotter there at the linebacker position very well. And you look at defensive line as well. You know, you lost three starters, and well, I guess two and a half starters as Peter Woods kind of rotated in and out with Tyler Davis and Rook. Um, and you do return starter TJ Parker as he was a true freshman last year and was the best true freshman edge rusher in the country. And Peter Woods was the best true freshman defensive tackle in the country. So you bring those guys back. You also throw in there Demont Capehart, who's in a little bit of legal trouble. I don't know exactly what all is going on with that, but I know there was something where he had a gun in his trunk or something. I don't really
I
know what
think
all
it
is
was
going on with that
illegal.
situation.
I think he was carrying it without a license or something like that. I think it was something around that area.
I think
But
so, but
don't quote me on that.
I think it was that that he didn't have the license for it. But I also think that they're looking into it because even though it was on campus, the state law is still overrides the campus law, and technically a car is considered an extension of the home. So I think they're looking into all that stuff. I would assume he's probably going to play. So you got Devont Capehart in there. You also got Trey Williams, big defensive tackle, redshirt senior in there. Peyton Page, senior. So you got a lot of experience there at that defensive tackle position to go
No,
along with the stud. Woods. But the edge rusher across from TJ Parker is going to be the question mark. You're going to have some guys play around and fill in there. You got Jaheim Lawson in there, Cade Denhoff, AJ Hoffler, and one of the new guys that they're bringing in Darian Mayo. He's going to get some time in there as well. Big edge rusher, 4-star, 148th nationally out of Maryland, 25th at his position. There, he's going to get some good time in there too, and I think he'll surprise a lot of people. So, any concerns or thoughts on this defensive side of the football for the Tigers before we
um,
move on to the offense?
the only thing that I have, there's really two main concerns I have for the defense, and number one is inexperience at some positions, mainly the defense line and linebacker. Um, when it comes to play time, um, especially that first game of the year, sneak peek at what we're going to be doing after this against Georgia, um, with Carson Beck coming back, that could be an issue to have some inexperience at the linebacker defense line, a little bit at the back end when it comes to Georgia throwing the ball and running it straight up the gut with filling holes and all that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at this secondary for the Tigers too, which I forgot to hit on. You got Avion Terrell at corner, true sophomore. You got Khalil Barnes at nickelback slash safety position, true sophomore. Kylan Griffin in there at free safety. He's a redshirt sophomore, alongside with Tyler Venables, though, the graduate. You got Sherrod Koval Jr. in there. He's a junior. You got RJ Mickens. He's a graduate at safety. You got Jaden Lucas, the true junior, in there. And then you got
I will
Corey
say one
Gibson,
of
a big time recruit for the Tigers out of high school, and he's a guy that they expect to come in and not necessarily start, but he's going to get a lot of good playing time. He's a 4-star, 214th nationally, 19th best corner out of Lancaster, Texas, and he's got some good size on him, 6'4" or 6 foot 170. So you know, it'll be that is the one thing. There is a lot of inexperience on this Clemson defense, but in every position, there's also a few veterans that can really help these guys mature. You look at linebackers, you got Wade Wood as the junior and Barrett Carter, the senior. On the D line, basically the entire defensive tackle group is seniors. And you have TJ Parker and Peter Woods at sophomore who have, you know, played a lot. They're more mature than they are because of what they had to do last year coming in and immediately starting. And you look in the secondary, same thing can be said about, you know, what we said about TJ Parker and Peter Woods with Avion Terrell, Khalil Barnes, and Kylie Griffin. But you also have those guys that have been here for a little bit with RJ Mickens, Sherrod Koval, and Tyler Venables. So the defense rounds out pretty well
I
for
will
Clemson.
I will say quick here before we move on to the offense. Um, Me personally being an Ohio State fan, I don't know as much about this Clemson team as you know because you're more so of a Clemson fan. But with Clemson being known to put tons of good defensive linemen in the draft, I'm surprised that they didn't go after Edric Houston more. More one of the more talented edge rushers in the nation, ended up going to Ohio State, composite 5-star. Um, and I thought he would have been a good player for Clemson to go after.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in that one as well, which we know as Clemson fans with Ebo, he doesn't just go around, he's not going to offer somebody just because they're a 5-star recruit. He wants to see more than just the fact that you're a 5-star recruit. Maybe there was that we don't know about that led to Clemson not really going after him a whole lot. And maybe it was just the fact that Clemson realized this guy is going to be a long shot for us to get. He's leaning more Ohio State or some other schools, so we're not going to use our time going after him. We'll throw him off or whatever, but we're going to focus our time on guys we feel we can hit more. That may have also been an approach that they took. When you look offensively for the Tigers, obviously there's a lot of question marks at quarterback, offensive line, and wide receiver, and it's been that way the last 2 years. And honestly, it's going to be that way until something gets fit, and for a reason. But you look at this wide receiver core you have, and it's the best group of talent that you've had over the last 3 years when this has been a question mark for you. So this is definitely the most potential for you to get back to what you were during those 6 years when you went straight years when you went to the college football playoff. You look at this wide receiver room. You got Troy Stellato, who was banged up a little bit all year, never really could get going. But he's back, redshirt junior. He's going to be a big key for them. Same thing with Antonio Williams, a guy who was banged up all year long. I think he only played in like 5 games, and he never really played a whole lot in any of them. You want to get him back healthy and going again. You got Tyler Brown, the true sophomore who played a ton as a freshman and was dominant. And I mean, he was the best receiver for Clemson last year by far. So you want to see him continue that as well. You look as well. You got Cole, who was injured in the Duke game, I believe, first half, and was out for the season. So he never even really got to do anything last year. You look at Adam, another guy who beat up all year long last year, showed a lot of good promise in that bowl game. Well, as Clemson fans, we get excited about the performance in the bowl game. EJ Williams had a performance the 20. Everybody thought he was going to be, the next Williams, Sammy Watkins type guy for Clemson. And he's enrolled at Indiana University, playing football there, or was last year at least. He didn't pin out. But then you look at the guys they also bring in. More insane elite freshman. He put a clinic at the All-American Bowl or whatever they call high school guys. He was just a beast, a 5-star. You look at the other guy, Brian Wesco, another guy who he was a 5-star. They bumped him down for a little, still 57th nationally from Texas. These guys are just elite receivers, and you want to bring them in and get them going. And I mean, these guys could really help boost it. Also, not only that, but put some pressure on these other guys that maybe feel a little bit relaxed. Get some more competition in that wide receiver room. And from the way they've been talking, which I know a lot of people talk like this, we'll see if they can back it up. But from the way they've been talking, they're ready to come in here and everybody what's up and make some moves and play for the running back set. You got them off. You got James and Keith Jr., the guy who I think is going to be huge for Clemson coming in next season at the running back position. They recruited from Georgia North Cobb High School is David Izumame. I believe that is the way you say it. Either that or Izume. From, like I said, from Kennesaw, Georgia at running back. I think the start of the season, he's going to be RB2 behind Phil, and he's just a beast. The biggest question for the Tigers, can offensive line and can this back Cade Klubnik improve? Because if neither one of those happen, doesn't matter if the wide receiver room improves. Doesn't matter how good the running backs or tight ends. Mentioned Jake Brenningstool. He's a very good tight end. Those tight ends secured. They're in good hands. But if the QB and the offensive line can't improve, then you're not going to have much success this season offensively. Off 24 for Clemson.
Now I will say here quick, with Phil Maffa, obviously he'll be your number one running back. Probably one of the best running backs in the country, if not the best. Other than that, Klubnik, like you said, if he can improve, I think he could be a Heisman candidate this year. Actually, if he can improve some. Now, I will say this Clemson team, it's kind of going to be with the motto I'm going to go with Ohio State with this year. Clemson will go as far as the offensive line allows them to go.
I agree. I would throw in and make that a two-part as far as the offensive line and the quarterback can take them, because if Klubnik plays like he did last year, it doesn't matter how great the offensive line is. They're not going nowhere. And same thing can be said if Club plays the level of Trevor Lawrence, but this offensive plays like they did last year. Should have a ton of struggles. The way the schedule is set for the most part, so that is nice. Few games that worry me, but I think that if Clemson can just, take a stride forward, if this offensive line takes a stride forward, if the wide receivers can stay healthy, this sets up for a team. I'm not saying you go 12-0, in all this stuff, but you can just win the ACC and you're in the college football playoff, and especially with the week in the playoff, there's no telling what you can do. This is a team with a lot of talent. I mean, a lot of these guys are 5-stars. You look even last year, when finished the regular season 8-4, counting the bowl game 9-4. You look at what they did, and they were still by 247 ranked, I think, 5th in the country in talent on the roster. So this is very they have the potential to go win a national championship. The question is, are they going to be developed and put it all together and go? But let's go ahead and jump into the schedule a little bit and play the win game. So I'll just call the games out. You just tell me win or loss, what you think, or you can go 50-50. You can say split, and we'll count it as half a win. And so we'll see what we have the Tigers at for next season. So week 1 against Georgia in Atlanta, what you got?
I think it's going to be a good game. Obviously, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl kickoff, I believe. Throwback to 2015 or 2016, something like that. But I think it's a good game. I think it's a one possession or two, about 7 to 10 point Georgia win.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's going to be a game that plays out pretty similar to the way it did 2 years ago when Clemson and Georgia met in Charlotte. And obviously, I think it'll be a little bit more high scoring than 10-3. But you look at that game, and Georgia goes on to win the national championship that year. You look at that game, as bad as Clemson was all season, they're pick 6 away from ending regulation, tied at 3 with Georgia. So I think they have the potential to hold them, to kind of hold Georgia down and play on their level. But I do think what it's going to come down to is which team's going to make a mistake first, and a costly mistake. And I mean, after watching last year, there's just no way you can say that Georgia's going to make a mistake before Clemson. You got to say Clemson makes the mistake first. And so I'm giving the win to Georgia, and I agree. I think it's
Especially with
about
that
7 to
younger
10 point
talent and
win.
being more inexperienced.
For sure, yeah. Georgia's a lot more experienced than Clemson, as they went through their inexperienced team last year. But moving on, you get a home game against App State. What do you think about that one, win or loss?
I don't even think. I mean, we saw App State going and beat Texas A&M last year, so I won't rule that out. Even though Texas A&M wasn't really that good last year, granted they're still a Power 5 team and in the SEC, but I like Clemson in this game by plenty.
I do too. Now, I will say, this is the part that scares me about the way Clemson's schedule sets up. You got Georgia week 1, App State week 2, NC State week 3. if Clemson beats Georgia week 1, because that isn't it's not likely, but it isn't impossible.
You're
If
going to
they
have
beat
that big
Georgia,
game fallout.
that's yeah, that's what I'm saying, and App State is the perfect team to take advantage of that. And so that's what scares me with App State right there, is because if Clemson does win that game against Georgia, they have the worst team possible to face after that in App State. And if they lose to App State, then they get NC State at home the next week. Now they will get a bye weekend. That is a good way that the schedule works out. But I do think that Clemson beats App State. So I got them at 1-1 right now going into a bye week, and then they get the Wolfpack of NC State at home. Thoughts on that one?
Um, I think this could be a bit of a trap game here. Obviously, Clemson home field advantage on the road. I believe lost to NC State the past 2 years. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but
They lost to them last year, and 2 years ago they've lost the last two games at NC State. But Dave Dorn and the Wolfpack have never beat Dabo at home in Clemson.
I will say I think this is a tight game, partially because of the inexperience and also depending on the offensive line. With that vaunted NC State defense from last year, if they come back better than last year, well, I wouldn't say vaunted, but better than usual. Um, I think Clemson has some issues moving the ball, and I think this is a two-score Clemson win.
I do too. Yeah, I'm going with the win here. I think that with Clemson going to be able to come off the bye week here, and NC State still going to be working in a new quarterback in Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina. And we'll see how good he is, because last year was not a very good year for him in a new offensive system. So we'll see if he really was a product of that Jamie Chadwell offensive system, or if the system he was in last year was just setting him up for failure. We'll have to see with that. But I mean, I think that he's a guy who can be a good quarterback, but working all that in, you've never won at Clemson. Going to be a crazy environment for the Textile Bowl. Give me the Tigers. I think they win that one. Next up, you got Stanford. Win or loss?
I think this, considering that Stanford hasn't been that good the past few years, but they have added some talent, um, especially with that quarterback. But I don't think he's coming in this year. I think he was class of 25. But that five-star quarterback, I forget his name. So I think obviously home game once again, home field advantage. One of the best home field advantages in football. I think Clemson runs away with this game.
I agree. I agree. Now the big one that you got. You rematch against your former quarterback in DJ Uiagalelei in Tallahassee. Rematch of a game that you should have won last year at home, ended up losing in overtime. Can Clemson beat the Seminoles on the road on October 5th? Win or loss in that one?
Hot take here. I'm going to say no. I think they dropped the two
Yeah, I
losses
mean,
on
I
the
could see
year
it. I'm
mainly because going up against your former quarterback, yes, you know what's going on, but defensive schemes have changed, offensive schemes have changed. The players that knew him, half of them probably aren't even there anymore. Um, I just think with the wide receiver talent that Florida State is losing, though, I think it can make it more interesting. I do actually think this game goes to overtime again. Um, I think Florida State wins by about 3-7.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a very close, tough game, but I am going to say Clemson wins this one, because I don't think DJ is a very good quarterback. I mean, he has a ton of mechanical issues, and you talked about the losses that Florida State has on the outside, and that's really what led them to such a good season, as well as a bunch of players they lose on the defense. And they're going to have to retool those guys with just more and more transfers. And I like what they bring in at receiver, but I don't think it's anywhere comparable to Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson combo. And
I will.
to me, DJ is nowhere near the playmaker that Jordan Travis is. He's got a better arm and better tools. The problem is his mechanics are whack, and he just doesn't have that it factor that Travis had. He's not the playmaker Travis was. And I feel like Florida State's issues offensively play straight into the strengths of Clemson's defense with the offensive line in the run game. I think Clemson's going to be able to just completely shut down the Florida State run game, much like they did this past year. But this year, Florida State isn't going to have those receivers
No,
that they had to be able
isn't
to
Benson
attack the
coming
Clemson
back?
secondary.
I
Go
can't
ahead.
remember. Isn't Benson coming back for Florida State?
Yeah, Benson is coming back. I
Um,
believe so.
I will say there's one thing to watch out if you're Clemson. If DJ gets going, I mean we've seen it. He's streaky, but when he is on, he is on. So I will say this: if he comes in on a roll, or if he gets going in that Clemson game, watch out.
For sure, yeah. I just think Clemson's going to be able to do a good job of stopping that with the pressure they're going to get up front on him and be able to make him uncomfortable all game long. And he's a guy who made it pretty obvious during his time at Clemson he doesn't like the pressure. And I feel like in this game, he's going to have a ton of pressure on him. I mean, the media is already hyping it up. I've already seen 3 different interviews where they're asking him about facing Clemson this year. So, I mean, the pressure's there. We'll see how he handles it. But I'm going win. You're going lost there. We got Wake Forest next. What do you got on this one?
It's not on the road. I meant no. Is this at home or on? This is away. Um,
That's away.
on the
Yeah.
road, not necessarily the greatest team, but coming off of once again, just like the Georgia game, maybe not as big, but another big game. Like I think you could experience that big game fallout again for the first half. But I think Clemson does pull away in the second half of this game.
Yep, I agree. I think that they potentially could, but I just don't think Wake Forest is a good team at all. I think Clemson has no problem handling them here. I think that they beat the Demon Deacons of Wake Forest. Moving on, they got Virginia next at home. First matchup between Tony Elliott and Dabo Sweeney as head coaches. Who you got in this one?
No reason to really explain. I'll just say it right out of the gate. I got Clemson by quite a bit.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I,
I don't
I
I
don't
think
think
it's going to be
Virginia's
hard
that good of a
for.
team.
I don't either. I think it's going to be hard for them to come into Death Valley and get a win. I gotta win for the Tigers as well. So next up, the Louisville Cardinals. What do you got in this one?
Well, I think if Plummer leaving, um, and Thrash leaving, if them two would have stayed, I think this is competitive, more so competitive. But without them coming back, I think this is a 2 to 3 score game. Clemson win.
I agree. I just don't think they really found a way to replace those guys and Jawar Jordan, the running back as well, losing him. Also, I just don't think they really replaced those guys like they should have. I think Louisville's gonna, and I think Louisville also last year they had a lot of wins, had a good season, but I think they also benefited from a very weak schedule as well. They never really beat any good teams.
I mean, they couldn't
Um,
even beat Florida State without Jordan Travis.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Florida State could move the football and they still beat Louisville. Um, so yeah, I got to win there. Next up, we got Virginia Tech on the road. Thoughts on this one? Who you got winning it?
Um, you know, um, wouldn't also going back to that Florida State game quick. I think that's probably a primetime game. But back to the Virginia Tech game. I think this is also probably a primetime game, just for the sake of the location of it. Um, with how loud that stadium gets at night, and um, obviously probably the loudest entrance in all of college football of Sandman and the crowd. I think it could be tough at the start of the game, but I think Clemson pulls away.
Yeah, see, this is the one where I agree with you that Clemson loses 2 games. I think they beat Florida State, but I think this is the one they lose, actually. I think with that environment, this is probably going to be a primetime game. It's going to be a nut house up there. I think that Clemson and Virginia Tech are, I mean, pick whichever one you want. There's no bad argument for either. Are the toughest places to play in the ACC, 1A and 1B, however you want to rank them. When Virginia Tech's good, obviously Clemson's been the toughest just because they've been a better team. But in terms of environment, Virginia Tech's crazy. I was up there for a primetime game in 2021 against Notre Dame, where Notre Dame won it on a last second field goal. but that place was just crazy and loud the entire time. And I think that you look at the weapons Virginia Tech has and the way that they play, and you talked about all these young players for Clemson. I think that atmosphere can get to them. I really do. I think this is where Clemson drops another one. Here is to Virginia Tech on the road next, and then you got another road game back to back. Here you're going on the road to Pitt. What do you got in this one?
Um, I personally think that you keep the momentum going here with Pitt. Not necessarily being a bad team, but not the best either. I would say they're kind of in the middle of the pack in the ACC. Um, I think Clemson pulls away for win here by at least 17 to 21 plus.
Yeah, I agree. I think Clemson rolls over Pitt. I think Pitt's one of the worst teams in the ACC. They're getting a little bit better, but still not. Still don't really think that they're going to be a team to really push Clemson. Then they got the Citadel. Don't think there's much discussion on this one. I would assume you have a win. I have a win on this one.
On which one?
The Citadel.
Yeah, that's not much of a competition. I wouldn't be
No,
surprised if that game's like 63 to nothing.
I know. Yeah, not going to be a tough one there for the Tigers. But then you close it out at home against your rival South Carolina. You beat them last year 16-7. Didn't even score an offensive touchdown in the game. They lose a lot of key players. They lose their best receiver. They lose their quarterback. They lose their tight end. They lose a lot. They lose some of their better
Personally,
defensive players in the backfield. What are your thoughts on this one for Clemson, Carolina, the Palmetto Bowl?
personally, just Spencer Rattler here thing quick. I know this is probably a hot take, but I think Rattler probably should have came back. Um, because I think this was a bit of a draft stacked with QBs for him to go. Um, back to the game here.
Well, real
Obviously,
quick
with
on
it,
that Rattler point, I think this was actually the perfect draft class for him to go because he's going to be drafted. I mean, think about it. He's going to be drafted in the third or fourth round, most likely. I mean, he may jump into the second with his
I'm going to be
combine,
honest.
but
I don't. Go ahead.
he's not going to a team like Chicago or like what Cleveland has been in the past. Or like Washington. He's not going to one of these terrible franchises. He's going to go somewhere like what Jordan Love did with the Packers. He's going to go and he's going to get to sit behind the veteran and he's going to get to learn and mature. Whereas if he came out next year, he may have been one of the top three QBs taken in the draft and gone to uh, some garbage team franchise and ended up having his whole career screwed over. So I think it was actually a great move from him to go out now. But yeah,
I
get
will
to
say
your
this.
point on the South Carolina game for us.
South Carolina game. Obviously with Rattler leaving, a couple wide receivers leaving, a couple of few pieces, key pieces on defense and leaving. Um, Once again, I think this is a um, obviously it's a rivalry game, so anything can happen. We know that. For any game, example Iron Bowl last year. Um,
Yes.
with
And you could
I would
name plenty
say
more from the Iron Bowl.
Clemson by 2 scores,
Yeah, that's what I was
probably.
going with. I think Clemson wins anywhere from 10 to 17 points in this game. I just don't see South Carolina being too much of a again, it's a rivalry game, so I don't think you're going to blow them out. But then again, they lose so much, and they don't really have the luxury of replacing it like Clemson and some of these other big schools do because they don't recruit on the same level. So when they lose a guy like Spencer Rattler, which they do have, I will say they do have a good prospect at quarterback in Lenore Sellers. We'll see what he's able to do, though. He's a guy that has a lot of question marks. He's very unknown. And you look with Cade Klubnik, you look with DJ. Just giving examples from Clemson. Just because you're a five-star kid doesn't mean you come in like Trevor Lawrence, ready to go to the NFL, ready
Yeah.
made, need no developing. I mean, Sellers is probably going to make some mistakes. By this point in the end of the season, that is a good time for you to play Clemson if you're a South Carolina fan. He's had a whole season to grow and develop. But
No,
we'll
I will
see.
say that.
I just don't know if he has the weapons around him
That
and I don't think they have the offensive line to to win this football game. I mean, I think last year South Carolina is obviously a better team than I think they'll be this year, and I think Clemson was a worse team last year than they'll be this year. And I mean, Clemson beat
I,
them 16-7, didn't even score an offensive touchdown on the road. I think Clemson's going to get the win here at home this year
if
over the Gamecocks.
if you had to replace one game on this schedule, what would it be?
Um,
Because mine would be them playing Syracuse because I just want to see Kyle McCord get absolutely beat.
I would say for me, I wish we played at Virginia and got Virginia Tech at home.
I would probably switch um, Stanford with Syracuse. Plus, that
Yeah,
would be
I could
according
see
to the
that.
commit, because then with the committee, along with that being a home game, that would give you more of a McCord, as I just hinted at, transferring to Syracuse. That would be a bit better in the committee's eyes as well. With obviously, I would say um, Syracuse being better of a team than Stanford.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, that's going to wrap up today's video. Make sure you guys like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you check out Michael over at the Football Extraordinaire on YouTube and Patreon. Help us hit our goal over here on American Football Network of 1,300 subscribers by the end of February. We appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll see you